I found out on a Tuesday. Not from a lawyer, not from a phone call. From a bank alert on my phone while I was making coffee. A $340,000 transfer out of the estate account to a name I didn't recognize. I set my mug down. I picked my phone back up. I read it again. This is what I tell people when they ask how a family revenge story starts. It doesn't start with a fight. It starts with a notification you almost dismiss. Marcus passed 14 months before that Tuesday. My husband, 51 years old, heart attack in the driveway on a Sunday afternoon. We had been married 11 years, no children of our own, but Marcus had 2 adult kids from his first marriage, Derek and Simone, and his parents, Frank and Helene, who had never fully accepted that Marcus chose me. They were polite at the funeral, polite at the reading of the will. They smiled and said all the right things. I believed it. I told myself grief had smoothed something between us. That was the first mistake. Marcus was an engineer. He documented everything. The estate was structured with a revocable living trust, set up with an attorney 4 years before he died. The house, his investment accounts, his share of a commercial property in Phoenix, all of it moved into the trust. I was the named successor trustee, not co-trustee, successor. When he died, control passed to me. The attorney had walked me through it twice. Frank and Helene had been in the room for one of those meetings. What I didn't know was that 6 weeks after Marcus died, they had already started meeting with a different attorney. The first sign was a letter. It arrived addressed to me but felt written around me, like I was a formality. It referenced estate matters and listed Marcus by name. It was from a firm I didn't recognize. I called the number. The assistant said the firm had been retained by the family. I asked which family member. She said she couldn't disclose that. I told myself it was probably standard, that grief makes people do things, that Frank and Helene were just protecting themselves. I convinced myself of that for about 3 weeks. Then the $340,000 transfer hit my phone. I opened the estate account on my laptop and pulled the full transaction history. There were 2 other transfers I hadn't noticed, $47,000 and $112,000, both in the previous 6 weeks, both to the same account number. 3 transfers, nearly $500,000, none of them authorized by me. I didn't call Frank. I didn't call Derek. I called Marcus's original attorney and told him what I was looking at. He told me to stop touching anything and come in the next morning. That night, I pulled the physical trust documents out of the lockbox under the bed. I spread them on the kitchen table and read through section by section. Page 11, 3rd paragraph. Any distribution from the estate account over $25,000 required the signature of the successor trustee before processing. My signature, mine. I had not signed a single document, not once, not for any of those 3 transfers. I photographed every page. I pulled up the transaction history again. Then I sat very still. They had moved nearly $500,000 out of an account that required my authorization. Without ever contacting me, they forgot about the signature requirement. 11 years. 4 years of that trust sitting in place. A provision Marcus had specifically added. The attorney confirmed this later, because Marcus wanted to make sure no one could move funds without my knowledge. Marcus had known his family. He had built the protection in before he was gone. The attorney filed formal notice within the week. The transfers were flagged as unauthorized distributions from a trust instrument. The receiving account belonged to Derek and Simone. Derek called 2 days after the filing. He said it was a misunderstanding, that the money was being held for estate expenses, that no one was trying to cut me out. I listened to all of it. I said I was sure the attorneys could sort it out. Then I hung up and called my attorney back. Frank and Helene hired a second attorney to contest the trust itself. They argued Marcus had lacked capacity when he drafted it. They submitted a doctor's letter. My attorney described it very carefully as not meeting the legal standard for incapacity claims. Then the Phoenix property came up. They questioned whether Marcus had fully transferred it into the trust. I pulled the county assessor records myself. It had been in the trust since 2019. I screenshotted the filing and sent it to my attorney that afternoon. The contest was withdrawn 8 weeks later. Derek and Simone returned the transferred funds as part of a settlement. The estate was distributed according to the trust Marcus had written. The commercial property was appraised and sold. The proceeds went where Marcus had directed. The house is still in my name. The trust document is in the same lockbox where I found it. The signature line Marcus required, the one they never got, is still blank. Some people assume that kind of oversight is accidental. I've since learned it rarely is.